Hey everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I want to welcome everybody to the 2015 Atlanta Regional User Group meeting on sales and marketing. My name is Rob Rogers, and I'm going to be leading two classes for you today. This first class is on the foundational strategies for your business development, for your sales department, and for the strategies inside of that sales department that you need to grow to be the most effective sales and marketing program in the MSP industry, to give yourself that competitive advantage that you're looking for in the territory. We're going to talk about the setup cost, the ramp-up cost, or the monitoring cost, what it's going to take to monitor these programs, and then your return on investment that you should be getting for these programs. In the afternoon class, we're going to talk about the two additional strategies that you're going to need to go into that hyper-growth phase. Now, whether you want to be a hyper-growth company or you want to be a lifestyle business, and both of them have their pros and cons, this class is going to be for you because it's going to set the foundations for your sales and marketing department so you're investing the least amount of money to get the most amount of return. So how are we going to break up this class today? First, we're going to identify the market that we're chasing after. There's a specific segment of the market that makes it the easiest for us to chase. Then after that, we're going to build our sales department. Because keep in mind, just like your sales department and your salespeople, your IT people are different just like your salespeople. IT people have software people, hardware people, and then level 1s through level 2, level 3, level 4, where you have your PC guys and your networking guys. Salespeople are the same way. You have hunters and farmers and level 1s and level 2s. So we're going to make sure that we build the sales department in the correct way, making sure that they're doing the right jobs and making the most money for you. Then after that, we're going to talk about we built the sales department, we built the leads. Now we have to find out how we can chase after this segment, the two foundational strategies that you're going to need in place to chase after these leads the most effective way that you can. And then last, the pitch, my favorite part. We're going to talk about how we can protect ourselves from those top 1% salespeople out there that come in and with the power of their personality beat us on deals, even though they have a mediocre product. So you could win there, you had a great proposal, but because they had this fantastic personality, they won the deal and sneaked it out from you. So we're going to talk about how we can build a pitch so we have a significant value that is both tangible and provable, so we never lose those top 1% salespeople again and we equalize against them. And then at the end, if we have time, we'll answer any questions that you have. And if not, you can meet us afterwards. We'll be more than happy to answer all the questions or dig deeper into any of the strategies that we have. So how did ConnectWise find me? It turns out that last year our company, Osprey Strategic Research, took IT Nation by storm. We went down there and we entered into the Road to Reinvention contest by Josh Linkner for the best new business idea or business reinvention, and we took the grand prize there. And more importantly, and much more significantly, we led a master level sales and marketing class, and out of all 89 speakers, I was the #1 speaker there. Not because I had great ideas, and they're fantastic ideas, but because I didn't just deliver the ideas, because ideas by themselves are just dreams, and dreams to an entrepreneur is a dirty word. So I made sure that I delivered the follow-up, the plan of action, the vision. Because whenever I do anything, I want to be like Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, everybody knows who Charles Darwin is. He's the father of evolutionary thought and theory. Natural selection, that's Charles Darwin. But what most people don't know about Charles Darwin is he had a lot of competition in his time. Because he was a member of the Royal Academy of Sciences, the most prestigious scientific organization in the Western Hemisphere. And he had competition not only from the skeptics, who were brilliant, but also from inline competitors. One competitor in particular was named Alfred Wallace. Alfred Wallace was a well-respected, well-loved, and well-thought-of scientist. And early in their careers, they both set off on exploratory missions to make their name, to make their mark. And at the same time, in their explorations, they both had their eureka moment, their lightning bolt moment where they knew that they had an idea that was going to be a paradigm-shifting idea in the scientific community. You can imagine them running up to the ship's captain saying, "You've got to get back as fast as you can. I have this groundbreaking idea that's going to change the world." So when they finally did get back to the Royal Academy of Sciences and met each other, that's when they finally realized that in different hemispheres of the world, at the same time, they both came up with this idea of evolutionary thought. And in fact, they even co-authored a paper together, and to this day are both credited with the idea of coming up with evolution. But you see, here's where our story diverges. Because Alfred Wallace, he was a dreamer. Sure, he came back, he told his friends, his family, his loved ones, his colleagues, his beer buddies, but that's where it kind of ended. He flittered off into the next great idea, and he had many great ideas, won multiple awards and medals and national prestige for his ideas. But he died poor. Because nobody pays for ideas. They pay for strategies. They pay for visions. Charles Darwin stuck with this idea, had the stick-to-itiveness to pursue it over years and decades. He wrote every piece of paper that he could. He wrote the definitive book on the subject. He told anybody and everybody that he could about this idea. You can imagine him at a cocktail party walking into the room and people going, oh, there's Charles Darwin talking about that evolutionary stuff. Don't make eye contact. But you see, now, Charles Darwin is the father of evolutionary thought and theory. We still talk about him to this day. And Alfred Wallace is a cautionary tale in an Atlanta user group meeting. So in this class today, we're going to be like Charles Darwin. And we're going to remember that it's not the strongest that survives, it's not the most intelligent that makes it, but it's the person that is the most creative and adaptive to change that can survive and thrive. So today we're going to try and get our competitive advantage through adapting and changing market. So ConnectWise picked me to be up here for 3 different sessions here. I'm here in Atlanta, I'm going to be in Chicago, I'm going to be in Newark. I have to do 2 different presentations at IT Nation this year. But how did they get to me? Well, to give you the quick, I'm a combat vet from the 82nd Airborne. I went to the University of Florida, majored in medical biology, met my beautiful wife, went to the pharmaceutical industry. Did really well in the pharmaceutical industry, went to management there. Then I went to the automotive parts industry, did really well there. And then I came into the MSP industry, and I was able to draw on 20 years of sales management experience from a mature industry, pharmaceuticals and automotive parts, and bring my knowledge when I came to this small little MSP in Hartford, Connecticut, named IT Direct. They had 12 people at the time when I got there, and with under 2 years, we had doubled the size of the company to 25 people. Got them on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list multiple years in a row. MSP Mentors Top 501 multiple years in a row. And we were doing really well in our territory with all the mature industry sales management experience that I had to bring on this territory, bring down to bear on this territory. But I started going down to IT Nation 2012, 2013, 2014, and when I was down there, I saw everybody and realized there are brilliant IT people in this industry. There are Jedi Master level entrepreneurs in this industry. But sales managers with mature industry backgrounds, not too much. Look at these 2 gentlemen on the screen here. We know both of these guys. Alex Rogers of Chartech owns ARC Technologies. He is a top 1% sales personality. He has that grit and determination, that entrepreneur spirit. We know that he has made his company, ARC Technologies, into a fantastic small business. And it's taken him 21 years, but gosh darn it, he got there. He hit every roadblock, every dead end, but he made it to the top. Because remember this, before Alex Rogers started ARC Technologies, he was a cashier at Circuit City, so he did not have any sales management experience to draw on, much less from a mature industry. Gary Pica, top 1% sales personality, has that compelling spirit, has that ability to draw people to him, has that grit and determination and the entrepreneur spirit to make it. But Gary was able to do it bigger, better, and faster than Alex Rogers because he had just 4 years experience as a sales director at ADP, a mature industry. So he didn't hit all the roadblocks and dead ends to make it to the top. Now, they both made it there, but one was able to do it faster because he had that sales management experience from a mature industry with just 4 years. So when I started realizing that, I knew that that was my eureka moment. And that was when I went to the owner of the MSP I was working at, IT Direct, and said, I'm going to go start an MSP company, and I'm going to go do an MSP business development company where I'm not only going to teach everybody these strategies from mature industries, I'm going to do them for them as well. and I'd like you to be my first client. He said, absolutely, I'd love to be your first client. He's still my client to this day. And that is how we got here today. Because I want everybody to realize that, yes, I am a vendor in this space. But more importantly, today I am an educator, and I want to make sure that I leave you guys with no doubt, which is one of our core values in our company. Leave no doubt in anything you do. I want to leave no doubt that I did my best to be an educator today and to teach you the strategies that are best in class in the sales department and the sales lead generation side. Now, I'm going to be talking a lot about general concepts up here, and I'm going to show you different parts of the presentation. But everything that I have and everything that I do for MSPs across the nation is going to be given to you in our playbook. So in addition to the slides that I have up here, I have hidden slides that I'm going to give to you as well, so we don't get bogged down in the processes, in the workflows, in the tracks. So my goal today is to give to you the best sales and marketing presentation that you've ever had, and to show you, not just tell you, strategies for increasing your bottom line. So let's get right after this. The lifestyle business. The lifestyle business, the successful lifestyle business, you finally made it. You're doing the jobs that you want to do. You farmed out the stuff that you don't want to do. You're working between 10 and 60 hours a week, whatever you want to work. You're stable, you're profitable, you got your processes in place, everything's running smoothly. You're living in the top 1% of the nation as far as your salary and bonus, your benefits, and what your worth is, and life is good. And your friends and family think you're kind of a big deal, and you know what? They're right. You are a big deal. But if you want to maintain this level of pure awesomeness, you've got to be growing at about 10% per year in order to protect yourself from erosion. Corporate erosion is a repeatable process that happens year after year and is predictable. So let's just jump right into this and show you this graph up here. So this is an MRR growth over time. And there's two forms of growth and there's two forms of losses. So let's quickly go over this, and this is going to be the theme of what we're going to be going over for the rest of this class. New client acquisition is our strongest form of growth. We all know this. And we're going to be talking about the two strategies that we're going to be using to do new client growth in today's session. Proactive retention. This is something that separates the good to great clients, and it's something that we need to keep track of. And we're going to talk about this when we build our sales department. But right now, we want to talk about reactive retention. This is the part where you expected a certain amount of revenue from your client, and over the year, it was decreased. And it was decreased from either an external force or an internal force. The external forces we know we can't really do much about. It's where their business is slowing down, so they have to shrink their contract with you, and you either have to shrink the contract, you're going to lose the entire thing, so you have to react to it. And the internal side of reactive retention happens in three forms. It's typically, the symptoms are the three forms of communication, customer service, and responsiveness. Those three symptoms are what happens, and it's the reason that you have to react to the contract, and it usually comes in the form of having to reduce money that you're expected to get. So reactive retention happens at about 0.5 to 1.5% year over year. And you can't really do much about it on the external side, but on the internal side, it happens through customer service, communication, and responsiveness, and we're going to handle that through our abilities to handle productivity and efficiencies later on when we discuss our pitch. The other form of loss that is predictable is the attrition. The attrition rate that you have in your company is predictable. Once you're at that $2 million to $6 million range, you start having predictable attrition. And the predictable attrition is between 3 and 8% year over year. Now, that can either be monetary attrition or it could be client retention, right? So you have to track both of them. Did you lose 8% of your revenue off of 2 clients, or did you lose 5% of your revenue off of 20 clients? It depends, and you have to monitor both sides of them. The average is 5%. So let's just use 5% to make our math easier. Your 5% attrition is the same as your competitor's 5% attrition, which is the same as his competitor's 5% attrition. That 5% attrition across the industry is called the industry churn. And that churn is the easiest form of business for you to gain. Because think about this. An IT company attached to their client, if they are failing at customer service, communication, and responsiveness, then we know that the client is leaving the IT company in search of a better experience, the hope of a better opportunity. So they're leaving the incumbent, which is all the hard work of separating those two, and they're out there looking. That is where our inbound strategies are going to come from. Finding them and having them come into your company. That's what you're trying to do. So that 5% attrition that you had is spread out across the industry as well. And so 5% of the market is churning year over year over year, and most of that churn is due to customer service failure, communication failure, and responsiveness failure. So the one thing that I want to do is let you know what your market is. This is a standard S-curve model based on your time to adoption. And we know that in the beginning, not too many people accept a new product, right? They're the innovators. The people that accept it at the very start of it are the innovators. And then you move to early adopters. You can think of the 3D printers, which is in the early adopter stage. We know that it's starting to come around. Some architects are starting to use it. Some medical device companies are starting to use it. But it's not in the late majority stage, which is where we're in. We have the benefit of being in IT outsourcing, and pretty much everybody in the industry uses IT outsourcing in some capacity. The only people that are left that are not using IT outsourcing in any capacity are those break-fix people, or they stay with the internal departments. Even though they have 50 devices and have 5 IT guys to support it, they're happy and they're safe. They want to stay in that safe mode, in the laggard mode. But in the late majority stage where we're in, we know that 75 to 85% of all the businesses that we're chasing after in our territory accept our product as something that they either use or they use in another way in some capacity, whether they just do backup or they just do antivirus. They do outsourcing in some capacity. So if we know that 75% of our market is outsourcing in some capacity, and every year 5% of that market is churning, we can find out what that number is and start chasing after it. So the way that you chase after it, the way you find out and identify your market, is to go to one of the lead generation sites like Hoovers.com. They used to be Dun & Bradstreet, or SalesGenie.com. Our company uses SalesGenie.com, and we have provided in the playbook how to figure out that market inside your playbook. We built the templates in there and all the SIC codes that people typically go after, and you can build it that way. You put in your address of your company, do a radius around it, and it tells you pretty much with a good accuracy, about 80% accuracy, of how many businesses fit your parameters inside your territory. Then you take 75% of those, because 75% of them are going to be working in will use us, and then 5% of that number is the active churn. So you know that at minimum, if you have 1,000 people in your territory, which is a real teeny tiny territory, then you're going to have about 40 people churning every single year, and you need to be a part of a portion of those deals. So how do we find those deals? You find them through the contract end date selling system, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this class later, and specifically in next class, in the afternoon class. So I want to make sure that we talk about money. How much top-line investment are you going to have to make in order to generate this minimum of 10% growth? So it turns out that we're going to build our company based on a $2 million company. That's typically when you can start really generating some revenue, and it's when you can start hiring your first salesperson. So at a $2 million MSP, we want to invest no more than 7%. You can go up to 8% if you're like in one of those stages where you have to hire one more person, but you generally want to be about 7%, and you don't want to hire more people until you get to the $3 million mark, which is able 1%. $3 million, 7% is 21. So you'll be able to afford one more person. But we're going to talk about $2 million and 7%. That makes $140,000 a year. $140,000 a year divided by 12 months comes out to about $11,500 to make our math easy. So we have to invest $11,500 per month, and we have to get a certain amount of revenue. And the revenue that we want to get back is a minimum of 10%. So when we speak further on these topics, We're going to talk about how much money you have to invest in this program, what it's going to take to monitor these programs, and when you should be getting your return on your investment. So let's just jump into the first part here. The farmer, your salesperson. You have to find your salesperson first. And there's different types of salespeople like we talked about earlier. And there's the farmer and the hunter. The hunter is in the afternoon class. That's the prospector. He's the one that's going out and trying to talk people into coming to your company that had no intention of leaving their current company. The farmer is somebody who tills the land. The client base is already established, and depending on the level of the farmer or the ability of the farmer, it tells you how good this contract is going to be, and produces a better yield on that client. So what do these guys do? Well, first off, how are we going to hire these guys? We know that we have to spend between $35,000 and $45,000 on these farmers, and that depends on what region you are in the country. In this southern region here, it tends to be about $35,000 as a base. Up in the New York area, it tends to be about $45,000 for the base. But we're going to use $45,000 as our baseline, so we can understand how much we have to invest in this guy today. So your base is going to be $45,000 per year, and it's going to take you about, with all the COGS and the taxes and benefits and everything, it's going to be a cost to you of about $4,500 per month. So we have $11,500 to invest, and we just spent $4,500 on our first purchase, which is a sales rep, and he's going to be a farmer. So how do we make sure we hire the right guy? Because there's a lot of people out there, and how do we know how we can reduce our risk when we hire somebody and not have a failure or a blowout? First thing you have to know is when they are being screened by your administrative assistant or by whoever's going to be doing it, the first thing that they have to know is no more than 2 jobs in 5 years. There's no exception here. You don't want to have somebody who is a job hopper. The typical length of hire for a sales rep is 18 to 24 months. That's how long they typically stay at a company before they move on. You don't want that typical person. You want that person that's been there for longer, so no more than 2 jobs in 5 years. They absolutely have to have long sales cycle experience. It doesn't have to be your industry, but it has to be similar to your industry, with large contracts, with multi-year deals, with large monthly deals, where you're interacting with the client, at least a few times per week. That kind of relationship has to be established. The next thing that they have to even make it into the interview with you is a proven quota-based system where they were in the top 25%. Now, if your administrative assistant couldn't find out if this person was in the top 25%, that's okay. You could find out in the interview because you want to bring them into the interview and make sure. Now, once they get into the interview, the number one thing that you're looking for when you're interviewing these people is you want to hire the smile and train the skill. Hire the smile, train the skill. I don't mean that you're hiring pretty people. That's not what I mean. What I mean is you're looking at their smile. Is it a nervous smile? If it's a nervous smile, don't bring them. It's not going to work. Do they not smile? People who generally don't smile in interviews that are salespeople are typically your hunters. And they smile when they're supposed to, but they're not that generally lit up type of personality. So they might be a hunter, so be careful there. But what you're looking for is that person that smiles to you and infects you with that smile. And by the end of it, you two are smiling and having a good time. Because if they're smiling all throughout the interview and it's a natural smile, they're going to be smiling on the phone to your clients, and the smile will go through the phone and make your clients smile too. So hire the smile, train the skill is one of the key ingredients to making sure that you are picking the right person. And the last thing that you really want to look at is to make sure, if you can find this person, and they're like the white elephant or the unicorn. Everybody says that they may or may not be true, but you've never seen one. But if you find somebody that has been promoted in their current position or in one back, then they are somebody to take very seriously. They get moved right up to the top unless they do something terribly, terribly wrong in the interview. They are a safe bet. Because every small and mid-sized business owner is not going to give anybody any more money in their current job unless they deserve it. So if somebody else said that they deserved more money and they gave more money, then you can bet that they're going to be a safe bet for you. So now we've hired our guy or our girl, and we got that person in the role, and they are an account manager, an account executive, and they're dealing with your clients on a day-to-day basis. What are they doing? What is their job? First and foremost, they are doing your project proposals. Now, before everybody freaks out on me, I don't mean that you have them doing your scoping. They don't go out there and scope out your sand projects. You don't want your sales knucklehead trying to figure out how to do all that. But what you do have them do is once your project team builds that sand scope and puts it into ConnectWise, into the project board, the salesperson goes in, pulls it out, puts it into Quozel or QuoteWorks or Excel, whatever they're going to do, and then completes it, puts in the margins, sends it back to the IT person. The IT person looks it over, sends it back to the salesperson, and the salesperson is the one that interacts with the client and talks about the negotiations and the prices, because you don't want your IT people discussing the money side of it, because they are your moral authority. So you want to try and keep them there and keep your salesperson talking about the money. So what just happened in that exchange, in that workflow? First and foremost, by outsourcing, by that IT person outsourcing that function to a salesperson, they just outsourced their non-critical functions to a lower wage worker. So you have a savings there. And because they outsource that non-critical function, they are able to focus more on their billable time. And you will see their billable time go up by about 3 hours per month by outsourcing it to the salesperson. That's one. Number two, because the salesperson is doing these project proposals not only for that IT person, but for every other IT person, and they can handle about 8 IT people in this capacity, they're going to be able to do it bigger, better, faster, because they're going to be doing 8 times more of these project proposals than that one IT person. So they're going to be a second set of eyes on the target, and they're going to be able to do a quality control check. And this salesperson, because he is now integrated into the IT department and with the clients, he's going to learn more and become better, faster in the overall IT structure. So what else does this do? So we just talked about how not only did we increase the billable rates of that one IT person, but 8 IT people that build these projects and send them to the sales people. So now you just got 8 people times 3 hours increase in billable time for months, goes up to 24 hours. So you increased your billable rates and you became more efficient that way. But what else can the salesperson do? You can have this salesperson increase your materials margins up to between 20 and 30%, not just on the SAM projects, but also on the workstations and on the servers. Because here's why. Your salesperson can build his script and his talking points to the people that complain about that. And you're going to have, maybe in the first year, you're going to have 2 to 3 people that get upset and they say, I went to the Dell website and your workstation costs more than Dell's website. Your salesperson will be able to talk to that point, because here's what happens. It's not just the IT person that does their IT magic, but there's a lot of non-IT work that goes in to that margin, right? Because you have to put the information into Dell. Somebody has to track the package. Somebody has to bring it in, inventory it, separate it out, make sure that everything's working, take it to the lab, set it up in the lab, and get it ready for the IT person so he can do his IT magic. Then once the IT person gets in there, images the workstation, puts it back in the box, takes it over to the client, and hooks it into the network, that's when all the IT magic happens. All that non-IT work, you can increase your margins by saying, look, we don't charge you IT rates for non-IT work. So we separate it and put it into the workstation, and it increases the cost of the workstation a little bit, but we're able to handle all that for you. Because if something ever breaks down or something's ever not shipped right, we handle all that for you. Nobody will complain about this. In the 4 years that we've been doing this, we've had 2 complaints, and they both bought the equipment themselves. One of them was happy with the equipment that they bought themselves. They saved themselves almost $500, and it wasn't even the owner that did it. It was a worker did it. It was a manager trying to save money. And the other one was kind of a disaster. They ordered the equipment, got the equipment in, didn't check to make sure that all the parts were there, and some of the parts were missing, and one of the parts was broke. So then they had to send it back, and they had to do it. It was a big nightmare. But they did the project with us anyway. we got all the labor for the project, and they never made that mistake again of ordering the equipment themselves, and they always order the equipment through us now. So it helps out a lot if you can increase your margins. Now, how is this rep going to be paid for, right? Because he's not doing it just, for his $35,000 base or his $45,000 base. All the project proposals that they're doing give them between a point and a point and a half on these project proposals. And it depends on how much margin they got on the deal. If they got 20 points, then you give them 1 point. If they got 25 points, then you give them another half point on that. And that's how you do that part. Now, what's the other part that they get paid on? Because they're not just doing the work for the IT department. They also have to do the work for the principal. Because the principal is still the rainmaker, or the number 2 guy is the rainmaker. So you also have to do the sales assist work, and that's where the salesperson makes sales proposals and how he helps close the sales proposals. He's not closing them, but he's doing all the follow-up work, because we know that the owner just goes from hot deal to hot deal to hot deal because he just doesn't have the time if somebody goes dark on him a little bit. We wish we did, and it's not because we're jerks that we don't follow up on deals that go dark. We just don't have the time. So your salesperson will have that dogged persistence on those follow-ups for you. That's where it makes a lot of difference in your proposals that are out there, because people don't go dark because they're jerks and they didn't like you. Something else came up. And your salesperson, that's what they like to do, is to follow up and have conversations with people and find out what's going on. And it may take 6 months, a year, but they'll eventually get those people back online for you. So how do you get commission on these salespeople? How do you commission them, right? What you want to do is your commission rate should be about 4 to 6% on all new deals. However, if the company generated the lead, it was a house generated lead, then you lose 1 to 2 points on the deal. So instead of it being 4 to 6%, it's 2 to 4%. Because the house generated the lead and the house did all the prospecting for the rep. And if he didn't have to do any prospecting, which is the most difficult part of any salesperson's day, they will be more than happy to give up a point or 2 on the deal if they didn't have to do any prospecting. Because a rep looks at it like this. I didn't have to do any prospecting. You just laid down a proposal on my lap, and all I have to do is just follow up on this thing, and then you're going to close it? I'm in. Let's do this. So a rep will not mind paying the engine 1 to 2 points on the deal to keep that engine going, that prospecting engine going, where he doesn't have to do it or she doesn't have to do it. So a company-generated lead or the house-generated lead needs to cost the rep 1 or 2 points. So that's how we built the rep. That's how we make sure that he's the most efficient. You've taken your outsource model and used your own outsource model to outsource stuff from your IT people to salespeople. And you've gone and we got 1 to 1.5 points. We've increased our margins on our hardware. We've now got 3 more hours per IT person dealing with this. Now, how are we going to make sure that they're doing their job? How do we know that they are working as much as we need them to work? What is a system that we can put in place? The system that we put in place is called the activity points system. And we use the activity points system through ConnectWise. It's the best one out there, so just use it. It's there for you for free. So you go into the setup tables and you set up your activity points, and people get points for making an email. They get another point for making a phone call. If they get a contract end date from somebody, they get 5 points. If they get an appointment from somebody, they get 15 points. And I have all the point systems, including how to set up the tables, how to do the screenshots, even how to do the sales dashboard through Report Writer in the playbook. So you can refer to that to build your activity point system. And if you use our activity point system, your standard rep needs to have a minimum of 300 points per week in order to make sure that they are doing a mediocre job. But if you've never done a point system before in your life, you want to start the rep off at 250 points per week. That's 50 points per day, and they can manage it. They'll crush that goal, and they'll feel really good about themselves. And then in the next month, go to that 300. And then the month after that, go to 350, then 4, then 450, then 500. Once you have your reps up to a 500-point system, they will be the most productive and efficient reps in the industry if you're using our point system. If you make your own point system, you're going to have to figure that out. But in our model, 500 points is the most effective that they can be. So the point system is a really good way to monitor their activity, make sure that they're doing the job, and it's going to help you because they will become more efficient at their job and they will tell you process changes that need to happen because they want to get to the 500 points. Because if they get to 500 points per week, you give them a little bonus. You give them points towards our loyalty points program, or you give them points off of your American Express card, you give them a $25 gift card, whatever you do, you give them a little bitty goal each week that they make their point system. And that is the carrot that will drive them to make them better. So far, we've talked about the sales rep, and we've talked about how we can build a sales rep in the most productive way that we can. And we've talked about losses, so we don't need to talk about this half of the graph anymore. And we're going to talk about new client acquisition in the next graph. So what about this proactive retention that I talked about earlier? Proactive retention is how good companies become great, and it's how the good companies get beat by the great companies as well. Proactive retention, it's where your clients through external or internal forces are being bombarded by sales reps like me every single day. And if you're not protected, you are going to lose the deal. You're going to lose your current client eventually. Because here's what happens. Proactive retention has a lot of different methods and a lot of different ways that you can attack this. But the one that I want to talk about right now is this. Say your competitor has a 2-year deal. He signed up this 2-year deal. It's a 24-month deal, $2,000 per month. It's great. The client's great. Everybody's happy. But then at month 25, nothing happens. At month 26, nothing happens. Month 27, they end up in a month-to-month contract. And they end up in this month-to-month contract because the IT owner is afraid to rock the boat. And people like me see this vulnerability, realize that that current client is in a month-to-month contract, and we start to salivate. We put these guys in a whole new bucket, and we start to build on that relationship because we know that you only have 29 days to protect that client, and I have an infinite amount of time to attack it. So to build that wedge, we can go slow. For you to protect that client, you have to react fast, and then you're going to lose a lot of money if they don't go with us. So proactive retention, you want to make sure that you go back to your clients, or go back when you get back, you want to build yourself an Excel spreadsheet, and you want to find out all your contract end dates that you have for your entire company. Then you want to do the next list of how much revenue per month you're getting from these clients. And you want to make sure you want to find all the people that are past their contract end dates and they're in this month-to-month contract. First thing you want to do is you want to make sure that if you don't have an inflationary rider in this contract, from now on, put inflationary riders in the contract, and the inflationary rider needs to be 3 to 4% every single year. So this 3 to 4% per year is going to protect you on the upside in the future. But if you don't have that in place right now, how do you get these clients that are in a month-to-month contract to sign up another 2 to 3 year deal with you? Well, if you don't have the inflationary rider and they're still paying the prices from 3 years before or 2 years before, your prices every single year need to be going up 5%. So if you haven't raised your prices, you need to go back and you need to raise your prices to catch up with the industry. So if you still have prices that are 10% reduced, and you try and go into your current client and say, hey, look, we haven't signed a new contract in a while here, and our prices have gone up 10%, you're going to lose, right? You're not going to be able to get that. But if you can get them up 3 or 4%, if you can get something out of them, you try and get something out of them. But the goal is to make sure you have that inflationary rider in the contract and then put them into another 2-year deal. Start off not at the 10% rate. So if you raise their rates 10%, you don't start off with the 10% rate. You give them a 50% reduction and you go down to 5%. You say, look, our new client rates are 10% higher. They're this number, but you're not a new client. You're our current client, and we love having you, but we're getting crushed on the back end because our prices are going up year over year over year, and we haven't raised your prices because we were in this contract, and we didn't want to rock the boat with you because that wouldn't have been fair. But now we have to split the costs with you, and we're not going to charge you 10% like we do with our other clients. We'll split the difference with you and charge you 5%. And they'll be happy. You're not going to have too many. You're going to have a hard time getting the final meeting, because they know that you're going to ask for more money. But then once you finally get the meeting with them, then you'll be able to get the deal. And remember, the goal is to get them in that 2-year deal. The goal is not to get the increase. If you get the increase, great. But the main goal is to protect yourself, because what's more important to you, a 24-month contract or a 29-day contract? I know what's more important to me when I'm going in there prospecting against you. So proactive retention is a very powerful form of protecting your upside. And if you put this inflationary rider, you're going to gain about 3% per year on your bottom line. If you don't, and all you're trying to do is get them into their contracts, if you're checking these things out and you have your inside sales rep turning these contracts over and bringing them into the new 24, the new 36-month contract, your churn will slow down by about 2 to 3% as well. Because it's a lot harder for people to get angry at you and cut bait with you in a 24-month contract than it is in a 29-day contract. So you have more time to ease over anything that happened bad, and that you can make up for it. So the proactive retention is not only going to increase your 3% if you don't have this inflationary rider, but it's also going to increase 3%, 2 to 3% by reducing your churn. Okay, so that's how we do the proactive retention. The next slide is going to be on how do we do the first strategy. What is the first lead generation strategy out there? Well, the first lead generation strategy out there that I feel is the most important, and it's what you build before you even build your first salesperson, is the referral program. And I have seen referral programs that have been haphazard in attempt that were successful, and I've seen all the way up to the best-in-class attempts. And the best-in-class attempts all have the same thing involved, and that is the loyalty points program. The loyalty points program has 3 prongs. It has the employee loyalty points, it has the client loyalty points, and it has the friend loyalty points, and that's the key. So if your employees have a loyalty report or a loyalty points program, they have different tiers. Tier 1 is 100 points, and 100 points equals $100. Tier 2 is 250, Tier 3 is 500, and Tier 4 is 750. And then some people have Tier 5 of 1,000. So as they get more points, and each point equals $1, they can either spend it on their Tier 1 prizes that they can get, or they can keep saving up over time and wait for that big $1,000 gift. And you have all sorts of different types of gifts, and you ask your employees what they feel they want to have, and then you put those into your plan. So, but that same plan is carbon copied into your client's loyalty points program, and here's how it works. You want to share the benefit in anything that you do. So take this example. You have an employee, and ABC Industries, one of your best clients, calls you up or emails you and says, hey, Mr. IT owner, your employee John did a fantastic job out here today, and I just wanted to send you this email and say thank you very much. He is a credit to your department. So you say, wow, that's awesome, right? I mean, we all like getting those compliments. Additionally, you send an email to your employee and say, hey, you just earned 50 points towards your loyalty points program for getting an outside work compliment. And here's your points. And he's ecstatic, right? He just got 50 points. He didn't just get the kudos, he got 50 points. And you always say it in a points way. You don't say it in a monetary way. You say it in a points way. So that equates the benefit of the prize more than it equates to money. And money, people would rather just have 50 bucks than just having something else. So you do it in the point system, so that way the money is taken out of it. So that client at ABC Industries just gave your employee a compliment. So you send that client an email back saying, hey, thank you, Tom, over at ABC Industries. We really appreciate the compliment. And because we believe in a partnership and shared experience, we have now included you in 50 points towards our client loyalty points program. So the employee got 50 points for getting an outside work compliment, and now your client just got 50 points. And then in the email, you say, and by the way, to learn more, click on this link. You will have 100% clicks on that link, and you have just built the bond between that client and that employee significantly. That partnership is locked in stone, and nobody can come in between that. With just $100, you have just built that bond better than anybody can do through anything else. Another way to do it is your employee should get a finite amount of points per month or per year. And most people I see give about 100 points, depending on the size of the company. You never want to go above $2,000 per month in this program. So you give everybody 25 points per month, or you give them 50 points per month, and it's a use it or lose it capacity. So they have a finite amount of points, and they get to either give it to each other, or they get to give it to a client. So John, your employee, says, I just want to thank Tom over at ABC Industries. I had a flat tire in his parking lot, and I didn't have AAA, and he helped me out by using his AAA card to help me get my flat tire fixed, and I really appreciate that. He went over and above what he should have done, and I think that's truly awesome. I want to donate 25 of my points to John. So right there, when you send that email over to ABC Industries, and you say, we just want to thank you, here's your 25 points in the customer loyalty points program, please click on this link to learn more. The last example is, how do you set this up? Because when that client, now every time your client got a compliment and got points, your employee got points. If your employee gets points, your client also gets points. It's a shared experience. The shared experience also has to go between your client and his friend. If they go between them, they both get points for this program, you win. So the way you want to set this thing up, and it's super simple to set up, is you set up two forward-facing sites, public sites. One is for the friends, and one is for the clients, and they're both benefit-driven. You don't want to put all the meat in there because you don't want your competitors knowing what you're doing. These are the feel-good sides of the page. And you don't want to have any logins. A login, you're going to have 90% drop-off rate. Even if you have the login and the password right in there, they're still not going to do it. So you want to have the easy stuff that's easily shareable and easily brought between the friend and the clients in the public base. And then behind the wall, you want to have all of your features, your tiers. There's 4 or 5 tiers. They're equal: 100 points, 250, 500, 750, and 1,000. All the terms and conditions, and everything goes inside of those. It's going to take you about $1,500 to set up this program, and it's going to take between 15 and maybe even 20 hours to set this up, because the first time it's going to take your rep. He's going to have to send out this email, and you want your email, the first time email, to talk about this program with your clients to be a fantastic email. So you want him to do it through a video, an animated video. That's the most powerful form of marketing right now. And we'll talk about the email and how they have to build it in the next class. So you have your public side, you have your private side, and what are the monthly ongoing costs going to be? We know it's going to cost between $0 and $2,000 per month. So let's step back for a second. We know that we had $11,500 per month to invest in our growth. We've already spent $4,500 on it on our rep. And now we're allocating $2,000 per month. Now, I have only seen one time where somebody has spent $2,000 per month on this program, but think about the investment that you're getting out of this, because you want to make sure that you're giving an appropriate level of gifts to people that are not only giving you great deals where you close the deal, which has to be like a 500-point system, but you also want to do it for a qualified lead. So if you get a qualified lead and it turns out to be a real lead, you want to give that friend and that client 50 points each towards your loyalty points program. Because think about this. It costs you hundreds of dollars of investment to get yourself a good lead from your salesperson or from your SEO company or from anywhere. It costs you hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get this lead, this qualified lead. And now you're going to pay $100 and 50 of it's going to your current client who's building up your relationship anymore. Well worth it. Do it every single time. So what is a good example of something that you should be doing? A good example of what you should be doing is how you analyze your touch points. Because we built up everything, but now we have to actually broadcast it. We have to make sure everybody in the world knows about it. So the key touch points, every single place where you touch your client, through emails, through survey tickets, through your business cards, through your shirts, wherever a client sees or interacts with you, there needs to be the ability for them to see your loyalty points program or your referral program. So, and you want to brand it something. You don't want to make it that just says, hey, give us a referral, we'll give you $1. Never say something like that. You want to say something like, help us grow, or tell a friend, don't keep us a secret. Something that, is a little more softer and sounds a little more cool than just saying, refer us and we'll give you $20. So your email campaigns, you're going to get about 5% return on your investment. People will see that. They'll open up about 5% of the time, and eventually you're going to start getting some feedback on that. Service tickets are really low. It's on there, it's at the bottom, but think about what's happening when there's a service ticket. Most people are, you're solving something and trying to get them back in line. They're not really paying attention to it, but it triggers their mind for a later, they're just a brand. Face-to-face part. You have to go and visit your clients every single year, 2 times per year. You, as the CEO, are visiting your top 20 clients twice per year. Your next in line visits clients number 21 through 40. And if you have a third person in line, or it's your salesperson, they visit clients 41 through 60. And you visit them twice per year. And there's 2 ways that you visit them. You can either do it after a giant proposal or after a giant project was done, and I have the workflows in the playbook. So right now in customized fields inside of ConnectWise, you can put in, if a project was over an X amount, trigger a workflow. And we have that in there. There's a little bug in there right now, but we have to work around until ConnectWise figures out the bug. It's in alpha right now at ConnectWise, and they assure us that it's going to be fixed super fast. But we have the workaround in there as well. So when a project closes, it gets closed out, the workflow triggers to send you an email and to send you an activity, and you know that you got to be involved in the post-project follow-up. The second place that you can do this is visiting your top 20 MSP clients. And in the tracks through your MSP onboarding, you can create a track through your top 20 through customized fields again, and you will get an email every 6 months that says, hey, don't forget to go and talk to these people. But you don't really have to remember this, because you can have this sent to your salesperson, and your salesperson should be clustering your appointments, and you want to visit 3 clients per month. That's it. And you want them to be clustered around each other, and it's going to take you an hour and a half, about a half an hour per client, and you go in there and you say, hey, how did the project go? Great. How did you like the new person? We were training a new guy. Did he do a good job? Great. Did we do a fantastic job for you? Yes. Okay. We're trying to grow our business, and we want to do it in a way where we're helping ourselves grow with our friends, and not doing it in the traditional sales and marketing way of calling strangers. Do you have anybody that you know that could benefit from the successes that you're having with us? Because look, we'll make you look like a superhero. You know we'll do a fantastic job and make sure that we really do well for you. You're going to get 22%, you're going to have more, but 22% of these are going to turn into MSP referrals for you. And everybody in this room closes more than 50%, but we're just using 50% as our baseline. So 22% of the time you're going to be getting referrals. You're closing 50% of it. That's a minimum of 4 new average size deals per year. And now we just moved ourselves up another 4% in our return. So far, we've gained 3% from proactive retention by reducing our churn, and we've gained 4% by our referral program. So what's the next way that we should be generating leads in our foundations for success? Google AdWords. I know, Google AdWords, some people love them, some people hate them. But there is a strategy for success in this industry, and I've seen many, many people that stick with this plan do very, very well. Now, I wish this was my plan. This is not my plan. This comes from Roland Technologies, Tim Conkle. Tim Conkle was just like all of us out there. He owned an $850,000 company. He had failed at multiple salespeople. He failed at SEO. He failed at SEM. He failed at Google AdWords himself. He was failing all over the place. Finally, he buckled down and he said, you know what? I am tired of this. I either got to make this work with salespeople, and I don't want salespeople because I don't know how to manage them, or I'm going to do it through Google AdWords. So he chose Google AdWords, and true to his word, he spent as much money as he needed to do, as much time as he needed to invest, and he finally found the secrets. He has found the plan to be successful, and he turned his $850,000 company in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, to a $9 million company in just over 6 years. I talked to him a few weeks ago, and he's still on track to do another $1 million this year. Now, before everybody runs out there and tries to emulate this program, we have to understand something about Tim Conkle, and he'll never admit this himself. He is a top 1% salesperson. He is good. He is really good. And on top of that, he has built a top 1% business case. So he goes in there and he 1-2 punches people with a great personality and a great plan that he has, and he wins a lot more deals than he loses. So he's got a pretty good job going on over there. So the good news is this plan has already been invented. The bad news is Tim Conkle doesn't do it anymore. He used to do a 2-day class for other MSP owners, and he would help you guys do this. And I've seen his plan work in small territories with 1,000 prospects, mid-sized territories and large territories, and all the way across it works. But now he doesn't do the plan anymore. He has farmed it out to Robb & Robbins. Now, I don't know much about Robb & Robbins, so I can't say for sure whether her plan is exactly like Tim Conkle's. If she does exactly like Tim Conkle, then it's a fantastic plan and it's well worth the investment. If not, I don't know. But I don't like to just tell you guys that you have to go to Robb & Robbins. I don't want to just leave you guys. That doesn't give you a competitive advantage, and it doesn't fulfill my fiduciary responsibility to ConnectWise. So here's what I did to help. We all know that in order to make Google AdWords successful, you have to have your AdWords attached to your landing page, and they have to be coordinated. And the best way, and the better they are, the better quality score you get from Google, and the higher your ad is ranked, and the less money that you have to pay per click. And this is going to take you about $5,000 per month to do. So now that's the rest of our budget, but how we're going to be getting a lot of return on our investment into Google AdWords, because it's not just about doing the landing pages and doing the ads. You also have to manage this program. It takes a lot of investment in this program. What you have to do is go in there and track the negative keywords. So negative keywords in our industry are very, very important, because we know that if you use IT support or IT support services, which is the most popular and expensive keyword in our industry, it costs about $25 per click, we know that you get all sorts of crazy entries when you type this in. So one that I got a long time ago was called IT support services for Boba Fett's jetpack. I mean, come on. I mean, it was super cool. That sounds super neat. But how did my ad come up for Google AdWords' IT support services for Boba Fett's jetpack? So I created a negative keyword called Boba Fett's jetpack, and I never got that again. And if I didn't do that, then that click where they clicked on my ad and I had to pay Google $25 for the privilege would have been a cost. But because I put it into my negative keyword campaign, then that became an asset. So I know people that have 2,000, 5,000, 7,000, 9,000 negative keywords in their campaign, which is an asset for your company. And when you go to sell your company in 50 years, that is a non-depreciable asset that nobody else has in your territory. So I don't want to just tell you about this. So I had my employees look around for IT support services and find 1,000 negative keywords that I'm going to give to you so you can put into your Google AdWords campaign. And that is going to be in the playbook, and it's going to be an Excel file. So all you have to do is just export it and import it into your Google AdWords campaign, and you'll be all squared away. So what else can you do with Google AdWords where you can find and get yourself a competitive advantage? These three companies, Espionage, SEMrush, and SpyFU, these three companies will tell you what your competitors are doing. So take this for example. What I did was I went to ConnectWise.com. I entered ConnectWise.com into these three sites, and this is what popped up. So we can tell how many keywords Google is chasing after, their paid campaign keywords, how many clicks they had per month on these, what their average position was, and what their average budget was. More importantly, we know what they used for their ad and what landing page it was attached to. So you can build your quality score based on what you know is working in the marketplace. So you can see what your competitors are doing and adjust from there so you can beat them with better keywords and with better knowledge inside of the campaign. Analyzing your competition, knowledge is power, right? So make sure that you understand this and look at what your competitors are doing. You're not trying to emulate them, you're trying to be better than them. So see what they're doing, understand what their keyword density is, and then you can be better than them. Okay, now we're going to take a mental coffee break because the next part about this conversation is going to be our pitch. And the pitch is the most important part of this entire presentation. It's my favorite part. So give me 3 seconds here. Let me take a quick mental break myself, and then we're all going to jump right back into this. Okay. I hope everybody had their espresso, did their mental jumping jacks, and they're ready to go because now we're going to differentiate through tangible and provable value. So when we're crafting our pitch, what are we truly trying to do? Right? We have to understand the how and the why. We can't all be natural selling dragon warriors like Alex Rogers and Carrie Pica, karate chopping our way through the territory with the power of our compelling personality. But what we can do and how we can cross swords with these guys is by building a best-in-class pitch. And what we're going to do today is figure out the way where we can be tangible and provable in our pitch. And we do that through stories. Because with stories, you're 22 times more effective than just telling somebody a fact alone. Because a fact is just a feature, it describes something, and our brains aren't programmed to understand that very well. So when you tell somebody a fact, it goes into their ear, into their language processing part of their brain, goes up into their frontal cortex, and the words get examined, decoded, and you try and make meaning out of the sentence. But because we are programmed, evolutionarily programmed, to understand our environment through external processes, then we understand. So our existing experiences dictate how we understand our environment. So what we have to do is tell everything through our stories. And we're going to have to build our stories based on our touch points through our clients. So how are we going to do this, right? If we know that the factual style is not as good as the narrative style, then we could build on that, right? We have to build on that through telling people stories that attack other parts of the brain, like the motor cortex, talking about motion, talking about your sensors, talking about your vision. Talking about the different senses in our body brings up different parts of our brain and helps us understand our scenario. For instance, this morning, when I talked about Darwin versus Alfred Wallace, I could have just told you that dreamers aren't as good as visionaries and we could have moved on. But I told you through the story so you could understand the impact, so we could build our bond, build our shared experience, and both have this experience with each other. So what do we do next? How are we going to do this? We're going to do this through competitive analysis. We're going to use the Jack Welch way. Jack Welch was the business owner for GE. He was the CEO of GE for 20 years, and he took it from a $12 billion company to a $500 billion company, a 4,000% increase. So we can't, and we know that he did this through being number one or number two in every single touch point that he had. Every single business unit that he was in, he wanted to be number one or number two. And if he wasn't, he cut bait. But we can't do it that way. We don't have a bunch of different business units that we can work with. But what we do have is touch points. So we can understand our environment, we can understand our clients, and we can build a best case scenario in either a number one or number two position by our touch points. So what you do first is you sit down with your salesperson, with your administrative assistant in the conference room, and you talk about and you find every single one of your competitors that you can in your territory, and you rank them tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. Tier 3 is the mom and pop shops, and it's also the Walmarts of your territory, where their value is their low, low, low price. And it's a very good strategy, and some people employ it, and that's where they're at. Walmart's a very good business. And that tier 3 company has to know all of tier 3 and all of tier 2. Tier 2 is your mid-level company with your mid-level services and your mid-level prices. And unfortunately for you guys, you guys have to know tier 3 and you have to know tier 1. And then tier 1 is your top, is your highest price, highest services. It's your Mercedes or your Nordstroms. And you have to know all your tier 1 competitors and your tier 2 competitors. Then you have your salesperson and your administrative assistant go out and comb through their websites and get every piece of competitive information that they can. And you put that in a list next to all of your touch points that you interact with your clients with. In everything, we're doing everything here. Your business hours, how many people you have, how long you guys have been in business, what you're certified with, everything that is an asset to you when your customers or a detriment has to be listed. So, but we know that you can't find all your information about your competitors through their website. So what you do first is you go to bidsync.com or one of the bid sites, and you find out when they had an MSP project or an MSP contract or bid with the local government in your area. And then you can go into your local government through the Freedom of Information Act and get that information out. And then you will have all their competitive information for that. But if you don't have that, and that's not accurate for now, when you go into these prospect meetings, if you ask the prospect and you say to them, look, we would like to give you an apples-to-apples comparison on the philosophies that we have made us so successful in this area versus our competitors, we would like to have your current proposal or your current contracts, redact the prices, you can even redact the company, it doesn't matter. We just want to do the work for you to show value for value, us versus everybody else. They will give you the contract. Pretty much about 40 to 50% of the people will give you the contract, and nobody's going to kick you out of the office at all, ever. You just have to ask. And if you ask it in a way where you're saying redact the prices, even redact the company, they don't care. They're not understanding what you're trying to do. They think that it's a benefit to them, and you have to make sure that you give them that benefit. But it works. And then once you have all the competitive information and you put all of your touch points, you can start comparing you versus all of your company, all your competition. So first thing you want to do is business hours. If everybody is open from 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 5:30, 8 to 5, something like that, then you know that you can beat that. Why not open from 7 to 7 or 6 to 7 or 7 to 6? Why not open longer? Now, this doesn't mean it has to be a cost to you. You don't have to pay your people more and increase the hours. You can do it through flex time, and it works. Tell your employees that you're going to open up 2 shifts, 7 to 4 or 10 to 7. People are going to want to come in at 7 or come in at 6 and leave early, and other people are going to want to play World of Warcraft till 10 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning and come in at 10. And now you just gave your employees a benefit, and you also made yourself number 1 in a competitive market, because here's what's happening. You just extended your normal operating hours so people could call into you. Now, it doesn't count if you're using the Canadian help desk company. I'm talking about somebody local that they know, who knows them, and it's a benefit. Because we know what happens at 7 o'clock in the morning. And here's the story that always happens, and everybody in this room has the story. And it may change, the profession may change, but one time a lawyer had to get a brief done for the judge, and he totally forgot about it over the weekend. So he rushed in at 7 o'clock in the morning, he banged through his password, messed it up. Banged through his password again, he was in such a rush, he messed it up. Did his password one more time and totally locked himself out of the computer. Now he's in trouble. Because remember, he was a lawyer, he wasn't really paying attention when everybody said, here's the IT hotline. So now he's scrambling around, moving papers all over the place, freaking out because if he doesn't have this brief to the judge by 9 o'clock, he was in trouble. So he finally finds the phone number, and two scenarios happen. Either competitor A or your company. If they went with competitor A, all they had was a cell phone for the on-call guy. All they had was a pager or a beeper or something. But at 7 o'clock in the morning, we all know that absolutely nobody's paying attention to that cell phone. And they're thinking about the dog that just knocked over the water, the baby blowing bubbles in her milk, and the two girls fighting over who gets to wear that shirt to school today. The last thing that they're thinking about is whether or not the cell phone is ringing. But with our company, we have somebody there waiting for you. We have somebody right there in front of the computer, no issues. They're working on other issues that happened over the night, and they're ready. They see the phone, they saw that you called up, your name popped up, and they say, hey, John, how you doing? How can I help you? Oh, you got to help me. I've locked myself out of the computer, and I got to have this brief to the judge by 9 o'clock. IT's, oh, man, that sounds terrible. Let me jump right on this for you. 7 minutes later, it's completely solved, and John, the lawyer, is moving on his way. He got the brief to the judge on time. Now, even if competitor A did see it, went to the PC or Surface or whatever he had to do, logged in, reset the password, got it all squared away, they're going to get a bill at the end of the month for time and a half because it was outside of normal business hours. With your company, they did not get that extra cost because you were trying to improve their productivity and efficiency without increasing their cost. And it didn't cost you anything. Having your IT guy solve it at 7 o'clock in the morning didn't really cost you anything. There's no reason to charge time and a half for that. So that's how you just improve customer service communication responsiveness through productivity and efficiencies because you had somebody there waiting for them and be able to handle it. But what about this end of month time? The end of month time is, if you see this in one of your competitors, is an easy thing to attack. So let's take this typical example that we have up here on the board. If somebody is investing in your company $1,500 per month, and they have you're giving them 10 hours a month for that, that's a $150 per hour investment. And we can all see that. But if your end of the month time isn't being managed, if they're not doing anything with end of month time, then what happens if they only got 9 hours of support that month? What happens to that extra hour? If your competitor doesn't do anything with it, then it's profit for the IT company and loss for the client. So, but the proportions of loss and profit are different, right? Because if you're at 10 hours and you reduce it to 9 hours, that's a 10% loss or a 10% profit to the IT company because they still got their $1,500, but they only had to do 9 hours worth of work. And that extra hour that you paid for, your client paid for, really they were doing that work with somebody else because it was just air in their pocket. So if it goes down to 8 hours, that's a 20% reduction. 7 hours, 30%, 40%, all the way to 50%. But think about this, and this is where this other side of the graph comes in. If as the IT company is doing less and less support for you, 10% less support, 20% less support, all the way down 5 hours, they did 50% less support for you, your cost, your client's cost goes up double, goes up to 200%. Because they're still paying $1,500, but they only got 5 hours support. So that means that that division is not $150 anymore, it's $300 per hour. So the difference in those is something that you could really build a story around versus that competitor because your philosophies are different, your philosophies are transparent. So what's a way that we can do this without causing end of month time to be just dropped off? You can give them something like AT&T's rollover minutes. You can put it into a bank of hours. They've already paid for it. You don't want to give them their money back, but they've already paid for it. Why not put those bank of hours into a program for them and monitor that? And then when they have that big project coming up, they can use that bank of hours that they have. So end of month time can be very powerful if you see one of your competitors doing it. Now, this is billing. This is one of my favorites that I can always attack because most of your competitors use billing this way. So let me set up this slide for you. This is billing to the minute. If you're billing to the minute and you have $150 that you're billing, right, versus a bill to the minute of 15 minutes at $125 per hour, on first glance, the $150 looks more expensive, but really the $125 billed at 15-minute increments is a lot more expensive. So on the dollar side of the graph, you have your money, and on the long, you have your time, all the way up to 60 minutes. So in a 15-minute blocks of time in that hour, it means they only had 4 tickets that they could use in that 1 hour. And if you bill to the minute, you have 60 incremental tickets throughout that hour. So, and then the last 2 points of the graph that I want to show, are if we have that linear slide is the bill to the minute. That's what the bill to minute looks like. And then the step approach is the bill to every 15 minutes. So you can see the difference in here. That's the air. And then right here, this is your typical fast ticket. This is like your password reset. We know that password resets take 7 to 8 minutes to solve, and that includes having a good time with the client and building up the relationship a little bit. But if it costs 7 minutes to really do the ticket, and your competitor is billing at 15 minutes, what happens to that other 8 minutes? Well, it goes into the IT company's pocket. So it looks like they're making a lot more money, but they are costing the client a whole heck of a lot more money. And if the bill to the minute is only more expensive to the client here and right there, once it gets past this point and goes down to 61 minutes, it's right back into the other person's favor. So billing more doesn't mean, or billing in 15-minute increments is not a benefit to the client. And we can attack that in our competitors that are doing it in that way and still charge more, because our tickets are using dollar value for dollar time. So we're charged for every dollar you invest in your IT company that bills to the minute is coming right back out in value. Nothing goes out in air and gets put into the IT company's pocket. So doing it that way, looking at it in a bill to minute option, even increasing the cost, or the amount that you're charging, can help you. So now we're doing guaranteed response time. Guaranteed response time is my favorite one. If you have a guaranteed response time of 1 hour and your competitor has a guaranteed response time of 4 hours, we can do a whole heck of a lot better. We can gain a competitive advantage in this by showing that a guaranteed response time of 4 hours is a detriment to their company, it's a risk to their company, because that IT company did not want to absorb the risk themselves. So if you have a guaranteed response time of 4 hours for a critical, nobody sees anybody in 4 hours. We all get to it before then. But then why are we putting the risk on the client when we can do it in a different way and show that we're trying to be transparent and trying to build a partnership? So in a guaranteed response time, if we guarantee that we're going to be there within the hour, we can go a step further. We can guarantee that not only are we going to be able to solve this or start this ticket in an hour, we will have boots on the ground driving out to your site if need be. Because remember, you're going to keep 3 to 4 servers, refurb servers in your lab. You always have a couple laptops in your lab, or a couple desktops in your lab, just in case. And you could run stuff out, and that's part of the sell, right? You have a wide bench of not only people, but of inventory to choose from if you need it. So you're able to drive out there, and for every hour that you haven't met your goal, it's free. But we know that you're going to be able to solve the ticket, and not solve the ticket, but start working on the ticket within the hour. And I haven't met a company yet that couldn't beat that metric, but we all put the risk on the client and not absorb the risk ourselves and make it a benefit to the client. So we take an IT person and we'll say that company A and company B, they both have the same IT person and he can solve it in 1 second. It's just a click of a button. In our company, company A, we solved the ticket in 1 hour and 1 second. In company B, they solved it in 4 hours, up to 4 hours and 1 second. That difference of 3 hours is a loss, a hard dollar loss. Because think about this. If their network didn't work for 3 hours, that's payroll, right? because your employees are still there. They're all sitting around the water cooler talking about Kim Kardashian or Tim Tebow. Now, you still had to pay them, and they weren't doing any work. Plus, you lost revenue, but you can make up the revenue. But when people are trying to make up that revenue, they're rushing because they have to get it done by 5 o'clock. They want to go see their kids play, and they make mistakes. And more mistakes pop up when people start rushing, and we all know that. So you can go into a company and say, look, I know that you guys are a $6 million company. You have 20 employees, and your average salary is about $52,000 per year. I have built for you guys an ROI calculator that you guys can use to help you understand these benefits. So right now it's at itservicesandcompanies.com, www.itservicesandcompanies.com. This is a practice website for me, and it's not ready to send out to you guys yet. I'm going to give you guys the code. It's not ready to send out to you guys yet. WordPress just came out with a new update, and it's a little bit buggy, and I have a couple misspellings in it. But if you enter in the monthly cost of your competitor, enter in how many hours they get, how many employees they have, and what their gross revenue is, it will spit out everything that it has to do with that client, to include what their billing increments are. If they have billing increments of 15 minutes, you put that in there. If they have a guaranteed response time of 4 hours, you put that in there. If they have their typical service tickets take them 7 minutes, you put that in there. If their typical long service tickets take them about 33 minutes, you can put that in there. And do they charge for unused time, or do they let you keep your unused time? If so, what happens when they only use 95% of their time that month? And all of these points on here, these green squares, are all interactive. They're all sliders. So every time you move one, it changes the math up here on top, and they will see not only their true hourly cost, but how many hours of support they're actually getting. Because if you're billing at 15-minute increments, and they're really only doing a few level 1 tickets and a few level 2 tickets, they're not truly getting a 10-hour MSP. They're really only getting about an 8.2-hour MSP, and you can talk to them about that. So this ROI calculator is going to be given to everybody. Anybody who wants it can have it. I'm not going to have it done in September. I'm doing 3 of these presentations for ConnectWise. I'm going to try and have it done in October so it's ready for everybody at IT Nation. So just get back to me if you guys want this. It's no problem. I'll give it to anybody, the code for this, and you can have it. So that's one way to prove to your clients that you guys are better. So you showed them not only your value, and showed them in the contract where they are charging 15-minute increments, you're charging 1-minute increments, and what that really means to them. But how else can you do that? You do that through the uptime calculator. Now, the uptime calculator, you have to build your uptime calculator on 10 hours per day times 5 days a week. Don't build it outside of that because the numbers are too large and they just don't make sense. But we can tell people that, look, you need to have your system up and running a minimum of 10 hours per day, right? You have your 9-hour day plus a half an hour before and a half an hour after. So at 10 hours per day times 52 weeks per year, how long is your network up with the current competitor versus ours? We know what our standard is, and we know what we've seen from other people. Typically, what you see from other people is about 99% of the time, 99.2% of the time, 99.5% of the time. But we'll just use 99.5% of the time for our competitors. What that means is that per year, through different parts of the year, their network goes down for 13 hours per year. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but if you add that up times a 20-person company at $2 million, that comes out to $5,200 of only payroll that you paid for that was never used. That's a big number. Because if you look at us, and if you're down 99.9% of the, or you're up 99.9% of the time, then the difference there is only 2 hours. So in that same setup, they're only costing you, if the network goes down, and networks go down, they just do, they're machines. Our response time and everything that we're doing to keep your network up and our proactive management means that you're going to be down on average about 2 hours per year. And the difference between $5,000 and $1,000 is a reason why you can charge more. because that difference is about $400 per month. So even if you're charging $1,900 and your competitor is charging $1,700, and it looks like you're $200 more per month, by showing them the uptime calculator of the differences and the ROI calculator of the differences, you have just turned that higher price into a cost savings. So not only did they get more value, but they got a cost savings, and that is where the real money comes in. And that is where you can charge more, give it as a benefit, and give it as a savings. Guys, I want to thank everybody for attending. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please contact myself or Tim McNeil at the information listed above, and we'll be more than happy to help anybody out that needs it. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a fantastic day.